Hey friends, we're just about 24 hours away from the Theology of Worship Through Music class at Redemption Arcadia. It's tomorrow night, Wednesday night, from 6:30 to 7:45 in the sanctuary at Redemption Arcadia, and we hope you can join us for that, or you can check us out on the Redemption Arcadia YouTube channel, which will be live streaming that class. I'm excited to share some thoughts about theology and worship, theology and music, and how those interact in God's world with you tomorrow night. Some stories about some things that I've experienced in the world of theology and the world of music. Oftentimes the music stories are more fun than the theology stories, although you'd be surprised about some of the things that theologians get up to in the world. Until then, I want to share with you just one or two more thoughts that you can be thinking about as we get ready for that class. Theologians often talk about a broad narrative or a salvific narrative, the story of God's history and salvation history, the way that God is working his purposes in the world that he has created. And when they talk about that narrative, they talk about the creation, the fall, and then redemption in Christ. That there is a creation, a fall, redemption, and then ultimately heading to our eternity with Christ, where we will be with God forever. Music, our Western music in particular, tends to follow that narrative. We have sort of a home, a beginning place where music is established and created, and then often as that's oftentimes called a key signature or a root chord, where we have sort of the creation or the establishment of the world that we're in music. And then often we go on a journey from there. We tend to move through a variety of different materials. Musicians have a lot of materials at their disposal, sort of like an artist has at their disposal, like this piece of art that I have here behind me. There's an artist tools that are used. There's materials that are used in order to create this piece of art. Or like the tree that you see behind me as well outside the window. God uses these materials in order to create this art that we see in the world, even in creation. Well, musicians do this as well. We have with musicians certain tools that are used, things like sound notes, particular notes, particular intervals. In fact, we've not always been comfortable with the intervals. The church used to think actually that there was the devil's interval or devil's chord or devil's music was the tritone. Da, da, da. So people used to actually not ever want to use that interval in church music because they felt like it was actually uncomfortable with our ears. So we have consonance and dissonance, things that we like to hear, things that we maybe are a little bit more uncomfortable for us to hear. We have rhythm, we have melody, we have orchestration, different types of instrumentation. There's lots of different materials that musicians use as well, and we can talk more about those. But with those materials, musicians are often telling this similar story, a story of a creation, of some sort of journey that we've gone away from home somehow. Maybe there's some difficulty, something to overcome, and then there's redemption and return to home. There's some sort of way of the tension being resolved, and then we return to home, only it's not just going backwards to the home that we had, it's actually a better version of the home, where we've landed after the tension and after the journey, after the conflict, after the climax of the music. The musicians are actually telling this similar story that theology tells, one of creation, of fall, and of redemption. So we hope you'll join us tomorrow night at Redemption Arcadia for the Theology of Worship Through Music class from 6:30 to 7:45. It'll also be online, and we'll discuss these kinds of things where God has enabled us to tell this broad story of creation and fall and redemption, even through music. We hope to see you there.